Just think every time that they launch a campaign without some type of protection, somebody's stealing money from them.
Welcome to the Mastering E-Commerce Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Eitan Koter, co-CEO of Vimy. In an era of rising acquisition costs and increased competition, this podcast is dedicated to helping you drive sales, engage customers, and build meaningful communities so you can turn passive visitors into active buyers. Now let's get started with the episode. Today we're joined by Rich Kahn, a digital marketing pioneer and the CEO of Anura.io. With over 31 years of experience, Rich has built multiple multimillion-dollar internet companies and has become a recognized leader in ad fraud prevention. As an Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year for technology, he's passionate about helping brands protect their ad spend and maintain integrity in digital advertising. Rich's expertise spans from pioneering ad fraud detection technologies to navigating the challenges of affiliate marketing and clean traffic acquisition, making him an invaluable resource for e-commerce marketeers looking to drive growth safely and effectively. Rich, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me today.
Really exciting topic today. I mean, the amount of budgets just pouring into Meta, TikTok, and all these advertising platform is huge. And I think this is a very, very important topic to discuss today. So really thank you for your time. And before we get started, Rich, if you can choose like 3 words that are most important to you or better describe you in business or life, and also explain us why.
So the first word is passion. You got to have passion in everything that you do. If you don't, you need to find something that you're passionate about. If you have passion in something, it brings the best out in you. So let's talk about passion. Diligence. You want to be diligent about what you're doing. You want to understand what you're getting yourself into and making sure you do as much research on the topic that you're doing. I always felt that's always a key element of any project I take on. And finally, the third word would be loyalty. Being loyal to your customers, being loyal to your staff, your partners. Those are just probably 3 words to live by for me.
Nice. Maybe the first time is be loyal to yourself, right? That at least what you do is the right thing and you have full passion and belief, and right. So definitely love those customers, employees, and also amazing. Great. Thank you for sharing that. So Rich, a lot of marketeers are just building and redesigning marketing strategies to support, the future and what's happening. And there is a specific version of it, which is like fraud-resistant marketing strategy, right? So what are some of the key considerations for marketeers out there when they, design their marketing strategies, and it needs to be proven in a way that fraud is really prevented and it's solid, rock solid on that respect?
Well, let's just paint a picture on the size of fraud, because a lot of people, have heard the terms, they understand bots clicking on ads, but they don't really think they're affected by it. So last year as a global society, we spent over $700 billion in digital marketing. So that's all the different channels: search, social, programmatic, TV, digital TV, connected TV. And based on our conservative estimates, 140 billion was stolen by fraudsters. That represents north of 20%. So it's not a question of if you have fraud, it's a question of how much fraud you're dealing with. And it depends. It depends on the channel that you're using. If you're using search and social, you'll be on the lower end, somewhere around 10% fraud. If you're doing affiliate marketing or programmatic, then you can be as high as 50% fraud. So it really depends on the channel that you're using and how you build out that channel and how you protect yourself. So my talks, I've been talking on the subject for years, for decades. And early on is like, there's some key metrics and things that you could do to try to prevent fraud. With AI, I see the stuff that's coming out that we're defending our clients against. I find it hard for somebody to be able to have the time to do it themselves. Usually you have a development team and everyone just goes right to the CTO and says, hey, we got a problem, I want you to solve it. And it just lumps it onto their desk as another problem for them to solve. And you can't do that effectively with, one person part-time. It just, especially with, we're all familiar with ChatGPT, but how many of us know about FraudGPT? It's an AI software that writes bots to go do if somebody wants to make money doing fraud. I read somewhere that the average fraudster makes $5 million a year. So I don't know if this is true or not. It's a statistic that I saw and I use from time to time in my talks. So again, what's happening now is when you have a piece of software that will write the bots for you, and then if you don't know how to, integrate it, you can just ask it, how do I run this software? It'll walk you step by step through doing it. So what happens is you end up getting more and more people that didn't have the technical skill to do it, to commit fraud, to now be able to commit fraud. So looking at some of the attacks that we've been defending against, it's hard pressed for me to understand if somebody's going to have the time and the diligence to be able to do it themselves. So you really need at this point to look at a solution, or if you're going to do it in-house, you really need to be serious about hiring a couple of people that are going to be dedicated to identifying fraud 100% of the time. You're going to need access to the technology that you're going to be able to need to look at this machine learning AI for yourself. You're going to have a data lake to store all the data that you're looking at to be able to, rummage through the data and have your AI or machine learning run through it and figure out what's fraud, or help you identify what's fraud. And then you have to have the intelligence and the expertise to be able to write the system to identify the fraud. It's getting more and more difficult as time goes on, and a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's just something that you need to solve today. Otherwise, I always say it to a business, like every business survives on digital marketing, right? You have to market it doesn't matter what product you have, what service you offer. If you don't market, nothing happens, right? You need to be able to market. So what happened if 100% of all the advertising you did was fraudulent? Well, fraudulent traffic doesn't convert, right? It's not going to bring you new clients. And we all know, okay, yeah, if I had 100% fraud, then I'd be out of business. But let me rephrase that a different way. At what percentage of fraud in your marketing channel would put you out of business? Now, we know 100% is definitely there, and we know that the average, based on the numbers I just gave you, is 22%. But would 30% put you out of business? 40, 50? What number would it take for your marketing to be so ineffective you can't drive in new clients, you can't grow as a business, eventually you shut down?
Yeah.
Let's look at that at a macro level, right? Let's take it at a macro level. Right now, based on our concerted efforts, we're seeing 22% of the market of the digital marketing spend is fraud. At what percent does it have to get to before the digital marketing sector shuts down? And if the digital marketing sector shuts down because there's so much fraud involved, where do new companies go get business? How do they advertise? We're going to go back to magazines again? Newspapers? I don't think so, but what happens? I don't know.
What are the incentive of those people who are committing the fraud? I mean, what's happened on that side?
Money.
Which work? Show us the money.
It's all about the money, right? So affiliate marketing is the easiest example to show you, right? You pay as a company, if I'm trying to drive more leads to my business, I pay an affiliate money to drive in clicks, impression, leads, conversion, something. I pay them to do something. And when you pay somebody to do something on the internet, cheaters find a way to cheat. And I'll give you an example. It's old, but it's through PayPal. When PayPal first came out, there were nobody, right? They were just starting as a payment solution processor, trying to get their way. And they came up with an ingenious way back then, was to offer a referral fee or an incentive fee to recommend people. So what they did was they said, for every person that you refer to our business that signs up an account, doesn't do anything else, just signs up an account, we're going to pay you $5, right? And that was the incentive that they built. Well, some ingenious, I want to say he was 18-year-old, if I remember correctly, came up with the idea to build a multi-level pyramid scheme, right? Using that $5. So he built software that layered inside of PayPal. So when you signed up for PayPal, it automatically PayPal'd out of that $5 you got for a new person to the people that came before you. Mm-hmm. And then as your downstream grew, you got paid $1 or whatever it was out of that. And I don't remember the details, but within a short period of time, he took over $1 million in referral fees. And they weren't real. I mean, these people weren't there to use the platform. They were there to get the $5 and the potential to make some real money. So again, fraudsters come out of all the woodwork when you start paying them to do something. And digital marketing is you're paying a publisher, you're paying somebody to send you traffic, and there's money in that. And if you're paying someone to do something, that's how going to cheat your system.
Yes. Wow. Interesting. So what are some of the red flags that are indicating that, your brand is suffering from fraud?
It depends on what your advertising is trying to accomplish, right? So let's say, and most people, they drive traffic to a site to either create a sale or create a lead, right? So let's say I'm an insurance company and I want to generate leads of people who want to save money on their car insurance. So somebody comes along, fills out a form, they put Ethan's information in there. They tell me exactly what, give me the name, the email address, the phone number, give me everything. I run it through a validation data checker to make sure all the data matches up. I've got the right phone number, I got the right email before we dial it. And then within seconds, it goes to a call center who picks up the phone and calls. And let's say they use my information, right? So you put Rich Kahn, Middletown, Delaware, got my email address, got my phone number, everything looks good, but I didn't fill out that form. A fraudster just stole my information online and put that information in. So now when they call me, it takes longer to reach me because I'm not going to answer the phone if I don't recognize the number, right? I didn't fill out any form. I'm not expecting anybody to call me out. So I blow off the call. But let's say I finally answer the call. They call me enough times because, these people will call you 10, 20, 30 times, right? Get you on the phone because they're thinking Rich Kahn fill out this form and is interested in my product or service. They finally get me on the form, on the call, and say, hey, we're calling you based on the information you fill out to save money on your car insurance. And I'm like, I never filled out your form. Right? So what happened? Right now, that brand just got somebody on the phone who's definitely not interested. They just broke TCPA compliance because they called somebody without express permission to call that person. So then now they can get sued.
Yeah.
They spend more money on call center resources, right? They can create a brand reputation issue if they're a big enough company making enough calls. I mean, all these negative effects. You start looking at some of this data and realize, oh, wow, that's not a real lead. How did that happen? And most people don't go right away, oh, it's fraud. Let me look up a fraud company. They don't understand that. They just go, something happened. I don't know why. And they really don't understand why that happened because somebody actually filled out a form. Some of these marketers will actually use software to record the user interaction, and then they'll go back and play the user interaction, and it doesn't look like a bot because AI bots look like real people. Or they use human fraud farms around the globe, so it's a real person behind the scenes, right? Maybe they used a CAPTCHA. They think CAPTCHA worked, decades ago. It doesn't work anymore. AI bots get around it, human fraud farms get around it. It's not a technology to use to stop fraud. So when you start looking at this kind of stuff, these are the kind of signs of high chargeback rate on, like, let's say if you're an e-commerce player and you start driving transactions to your shopping center and people are refunding or charging back the credit card because they didn't make the order. Well, now you're up the product because you shipped the product. You get a chargeback fee. You get enough of them, you lose your ability to use it to have your merchant account. I mean, these are the kinds of things you want to look for in your digital chain to see if there's something going on. And you look hard enough, you're going to find that it's happening probably more than you realize it. And it's time that you recognize it to do something about it.
Yes. And obviously technology here helps a lot. How the fraud detection technology has evolved, let's say in the last decade, and what are some of the innovations that you're most excited about?
So the innovations, like back in the day, CAPTCHA would work great, right? You'd put up something that's hard to read, you'd fill it out, or you'd select the boxes with all the bicycles in it or the buses, right? And bots, malware couldn't get around that. So that was great 10, 15, 20 years ago. But then fraudsters started invoking human fraud farms that take advantage of cheap labor forces around the globe. And last I checked, for like $9 an hour, you can license a fraud farm to sit down and, hey, fill out a form with all this information, or, create credit card product, buy these products using fake credit card. So there was a way, this is the kind of stuff that's happened. Now, companies like us, what we're looking for is a significantly advanced fraud that's out in the marketplace. A lot of it using AI, because AI is a fast learning systematic system that can, find ways to get around different things if you train it right. So these are some of the things that are coming out now that are very scary because they threaten the entire ecosystem of digital marketing. If they're able to win the race in the majority and also start making that digital marketing percentage of fraud go for 20, 30, 40, 50%, eventually it's going to happen like it happened in 2000. What happened in 2000 when everybody realized their marketing dollars weren't generating conversion? The whole market, the whole internet bubble burst. Everybody stopped spending money because they're like, wait a second, something's not working. Let's figure out what's going on. And back then it was fraud. It was the biggest channel of marketing back in 2000 was display, or programmatic as we call it today. And back then there was, we used to call them banner incinerators, right? What they would do is you would pay for impression, and there'd be software out there and games that would just flash a bunch of banners in front of you just to get you to burn through advertising, because that's how they were making money.
Yes.
And before you know it, the person says, wow, I got, 10 million impressions, but I had nothing out of it. I got to stop spending money there and figure out what the heck's going on, because it's not yielding a revenue, not really an ROIS. So, I mean, that could potentially happen again.
Wow. So what are some of the steps that you usually recommend brands if they want to be serious about that fraud? What's some of the processes, technologies? What are some of the major steps that you usually recommend?
Well, we've been doing this for the last, I've been building this software. I started the software myself 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago. And it's gotten to the point, it's gotten so sophisticated in identifying fraud. It would be hard for somebody like to build it themselves. So a lot of times what we want to do with a brand comes to us and says, hey, I think I have a problem with fraud. So the first thing we do is run a free trial. Let's figure out, A, do you have a fraud problem? And if so, how much of a problem do you have and where is it coming from? Once we identify that, now we have an opportunity to work together and help them mitigate that. We come up with a whole game plan. If we find that they don't have a fraud problem, which is rare, then obviously it doesn't make sense to work together. But step one, let's confirm that you have a problem that we can solve. And then if you have that problem, let's come up with a game plan. And it's different for everybody. You know, it depends on the channel you're marketing through, depends on a lot of different data points. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that you have a problem that's worth spending money to solve and then coming up with a game plan to solve it.
And how do you do that? That first step of trying to identify if there is a fraud. Tell us more. I mean, how the process works? I mean, how the software is analyzing which system that it needs to interface to.
Yeah.
How it works.
So it's simple for us. With us, it's very simple. We drop a tag. We give them a tag to drop on their landing pages. If they're using Google Tag Manager, we're pre-built into Google Tag Manager, so it's really easy to deploy. It takes a couple minutes. They deploy it, and the next thing we start collecting this data, and then we'll have a couple of review calls where we'll review the data to make sure it looks like what's coming in right. We're giving the right attribution to the different places where the traffic is coming from, and then usually we have that big call like 7 to 10 days once it's launched to review the data, understand how much of a fraud problem they have, where it's coming from, give them some proof of it so they understand it's not just numbers on the screen, it's a real statistic. And then there we can say, okay, this is how we suggest solving this problem. And then we'll go through the plan. Obviously, it includes using our software, but we'll come up with a game plan of how we're going to mitigate that and how they're going to have a significant ROI using our product to solve that problem.
Yes. And through this process, you can identify all sources of traffic like paid media, organic, backlinks, I mean, all those affiliates. And
Yep. For us, it doesn't matter. Yeah, for us, it doesn't matter the channel. Like it could be, like you said, it'd be email marketing, affiliate marketing, ping post, lead generation, TikTok, doesn't matter. Whatever channel they're buying traffic from, our system will work because it's looking at the visitor that's coming to their site. It doesn't care what the channel is that it came from. It just understands, is this visitor real or fake? And if they're fake, where did it come from? Oh, it came from TikTok, or it came from X, or it came from Facebook, or whatever. And then we can identify, wow, Facebook had 12% fraud, TikTok had 18%. And then we can come with a game plan to mitigate all that.
Okay, so how the game plan works? Well, what are the steps that usually, the brands needs to take?
So and once we identify they have fraud, and then we'll sit down and come up with a game plan for each channel. A lot of companies that we come to will have multi-channel marketing. So each channel will be a different aspect. So if it's programmatic, we're going to collect a bunch of sites that are generating the majority of the fraud and have them blacklist that from their campaign. If it's Google search, so you got Google, Microsoft, Yahoo. So let's say they're buying traffic from those sources. We're going to come up with a game plan to give an audience to Google or Yahoo or Bing to say, I want to ignore this audience because this audience we know is generating fraudulent traffic, and they'll literally hide their ad from those so that it starts reducing the amount of fraud they're getting in. Social works very similar. You can build audiences and dictate which audiences to remove. If it's affiliate marketing, we'll actually put a game plan in place so they don't even pay the affiliate for that initial click or the impression that they generated, and do it in real time, because most of those systems we could talk to and do that stuff in real time. So like I said, each channel will be a little bit different game plan, but we'll come up with a game plan specific for that client.
Yeah. So then you monitor, you have a list of probably blacklists, sources, and then you recommend this to social media, whatever, not to target those users again. Okay. So that's a very, now I think I understand the entire flow. And so there is a lot of technology involved, right? A lot of experience. As I said, you've been working like 1 or 2 decades on the tech, but it's not only the tech, it's also, the experience and the database that you've obviously been accumulated over the years. So anything else that companies needs to think of, right? When they are designing their campaigns and launching their affiliate marketing, all this.
Just think every time that they launch a campaign without some type of protection, somebody's stealing money from them.
Yeah.
So, and that's the biggest thing we try to explain to people. And that's why we do the free trial. We want to show them, this is how much money you're losing. So let's just take a $100,000 a month, digital marketing budget. If I can identify the average is 25% fraud and they have the average of 25%, they're losing $25,000 a month to fraud. Or if I really stretch it, I'll tell people that, people want to know where's fraud coming from. The majority of fraud comes from organized crime. So if you really look at that, if you're spending $100,000 in marketing, you're actually funding organized crime with $25,000 a month. Now, it's a stretch, but you get the point.
Yes.
You're losing money and you're supporting fraudulent activity in some fashion. So you want to put an end to that.
So what's the expectation? I mean, assuming they are following your process, using the technology, what is usually, they're aiming to expect in terms of this, reducing this 25% ratio?
Yeah. So it all depends on the channel, right? It depends on where it's coming from. It depends on, but generally speaking, we look to cut their fraudulent activity in half in the first 90 days. And then the goal is, let's do it again. Let's cut it in half again. Like our goal is to get them down and then get them protected. It's almost impossible to get down to 0% fraud. Unless you're 100% affiliate-based marketing, because we don't pay them out if they're fraudulent, right? The other channels, it takes building audiences, it takes building blacklists, it takes stuff, but you get them down to a percentage where it's a lot less than it was at the beginning. And then making sure we keep tabs on that, because what happens is, we've seen this happen. Like we'll have a customer down to like say 2-3% fraud. So, compared to where they were 25%, right? Really low, everything's going great. They're like, okay, I don't need you anymore. They shut us off. And 3 months later, they call us back like the fraud's back. Well, of course, you let your guard down, they're going to come back. So it's something that once they start doing, they have to continuously do. A good example is ADT, I think, was famous for this. It was a commercial a while ago where you see somebody, a burglar coming up to a house and about to break into the house, but then they see, protected by ADT. And they're like, oh, you know what? I'm not even going to bother because they make it too difficult. I'm just going to go next door. They don't have protection. I'm just going to go there. And that's kind of like with fraud detection. When they come to your website, they can see if you're running a fraud solution. If you're running a fraud solution and they can't get around it, they go somewhere else.
How much, the percentage of overall businesses that are using as fraud technologies from your experience?
I wish I knew, but I did I found an interesting study I read last year that I think said the market cap for anti-fraud solutions like ours was coming up to $1 billion market cap. $1 billion market cap. I think it was last year, and they're expecting by 2028 to be $9 billion. So the expecting of people onboarding this software. Again, if you're going to spend $9 billion to protect $140 billion, there's a big ROI there.
Sure.
So that's kind of what we're looking at.
And you mentioned like 50% reduction in 90 days. Obviously, cost of your services and the platform obviously is much less. How do you price the platform?
Pricing is based on the number of visitors that we scan each month, and it depends on how much we're scanning. But it gets real. At the end of the day, I would say, depending on how they're advertising and where they're advertising, just about every single time we've come up against somebody and we're pitching, there's an ROI, and there's a good ROI. So like you'll spend a couple $1,000 and maybe you'll save, 30, 40, 50,000, or you'll have some of the bigger brands that are spending $1 million a month and they're losing $250,000 a month, significantly a fraction of that, just to be able to put our technology in place, identify where it's coming from and eliminate it. So in fact, we even have a savings calculator built into our dashboard.
Yes.
So people can actually get a feel, because they forget, I'm running this technology. What am I saving? Well, every time they log in, it's right there. This is how much you're saving.
Yes. And how do you monitor progress in net fraud? Developments, how do you figure out, what's next?
We built early on an early version of machine learning that rummages through billions and billions of visitors every day that come across our network. Look for anomalies, things that we don't know and it doesn't understand. And then it's a red flag to our engineering team. Our engineering team is then able to look at that and then either retrain the model or build out a new rule or heuristic to stop that new level of fraud. We usually roll out updates about once or twice a week because it's changing that fast.
Sure. Yeah, definitely that's the right way to go, right? Use machine learning AI just to monitor everything. Tell us more about Anura. Where are you these days? What type of customers, right, do you want to attract?
Sure. We typically go after the brands, and I'll tell you why. The brands, when you ask them what's their tolerance for fraud, is always zero, right? They're paying for it. But if you go to an agency, we have some agencies that really care about it, and then some agencies that, hey, my client's not complaining. I'm not going to do anything about it, because again, they're not the ones who are responsible. If the client's happy, they're fine. But we have clients that are agencies that will basically understand that if they reduce fraud for their clients see a higher ROI with them, they'll spend more money. For the most part, we're going after direct brands. For us, that makes the most sense because they're the ones who spend money on it and don't want to spend a single penny on fraud if they can avoid it. That's really what we're focusing on. Those are the people that we focus on the most. But really, anybody that cares about, the visitor fraudulent or not, it's something that we can help.
Yes. Any minimum budget, like advertising budget or some size?
So, yeah, because we do a lot of hand holding, we have a lot of expertise that we'll do monthly reviews with the clients, where our response time is less than 1 business hour if they have a support question. So to keep those resources, we have a minimum, seems to be a good spot. If they're spending or managing a minimum of $50,000 a month or more, the ROI with our product works out great. It ends up being a good. We handle clients that do less. And if we have like startups. So let's say you have some audiences that are startup. We have a relationship with one of our clients that will actually give them access to our software without the support package with a no minimum monthly fee. So we can't support them, but we can still get access to the technology while they're small and startup. And then as they grow, then of course, eventually they might get to a point where it makes sense to switch over to us direct.
Makes sense. And so what are some of the main objections that you usually hear from brands?
It's not an important topic right now. We're not seeing issues right now. 10% fraud is just part of the cost of doing business. It basically, I hate to say it, but it's a lazy CMO, right? Because if you have a 10% fraudulent activity, and that's on the light side, right? Let's say they're doing 100% Google and Facebook, and they're getting that 10% average. Well, 10%, so, if you can cut that in half in 90 days, that's a good improvement. Like people are spending money on technologies to get a simple improvement of like a couple percentage points, but if you can get 5 percentage points improvement in your overall marketing spend, it's just a lot of, every once in a while we get somebody, it's like, oh, it's another dashboard that I have to log into. Adds work to my, and again, a lot of our stuff is automated. So we don't really involve, once it's set up and built, there's really not a lot of time investment. In fact, we had one client told us we sold them 400 hours a quarter in human resource. So that resource alone was worth the cost of the service.
And I mean, the ROI is so clear here, right? It's so easy to explain. Yeah. But again, it's a matter of just priorities, resources, task fatigue, right? I just all over.
Yeah.
Great, Rich. So how about people can find you and Anura?
I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, Rich Kahn. And you just type in Rich Kahn, Anura, boom, I'm right there. I'm easy to find. But Anura is ANURA.io. We have a huge amount of resources online. So if you're just starting to learn about this industry and you want to learn more, we recently rolled out earlier this year a huge, the ultimate guide to ad fraud. It's about an 80-page ebook that you can download for free. It talks about all aspects, different areas, what to look for, some basic tactics you can do today to try to minimize or eliminate fraud if you're not ready to start working with a company like us. But we have probably a dozen or so ebooks on there from each marketing channel. We have some case studies, some white papers up there. And we do like 2-3 blogs a week talking about the subject. So you can learn more about it without having to talk to anybody right away.
Great. And we'll put all those, we'll add all those links into the show notes, of course. Rich, anything else you want to add?
That's it for now. Like I said, it's if you're not familiar with the subject, get familiar with the subject because it's familiar with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great summary, Rich. Thank you so much.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe so you won't miss any of our future content. Explore Vimeo, the video commerce platform that includes live shopping, shoppable video, and social commerce capabilities. Visit Vimeo at www.vimeo.net. We appreciate your support and look forward for bringing you more valuable insight in our next episode.